celebrations are for something very special. 1982 will be a year unlike any other in Thailand, because 1982 marks the 200th anniversary of Thailand's Chakri dynasty and the founding of Bangkok. For 200 years, 9 Rama kings have ruled Thailand and its people. And throughout that time, the Thais have remained independent, and the nation has been safely guided through to modern times by its kings. Today's sovereign, Rama IX Phumipon Adulyadej. King Phumipon has been sovereign of Thailand for 32 years. He was crowned in 1950 at 23, following his elder brother's untimely death 4 years before. King Phumipon is a monarch of the Far East, even though he was born in the United States where his father was studying. He is the latest monarch in a long line, stretching back over 2 centuries, and established by King Prabuddha Yodfa. Rama I, Bangkok, and Thai nationhood are linked together in history. Rama I became king because of his predecessor's inability to protect the country and its capital city from Burmese invaders. The new king moved his capital to the protection of the Chao Phraya River's eastern bank. The location, a small trading village known as Bangkok. The first of the Rama kings had laid down the foundations for a dynasty, but also for a great city and a nation. Bangkok, a city of contrasts, a busy modern metropolis. To some, it is a city shrouded in the serenity of its temples and of its past. To others, it has become an urban nightmare. The City of Angels is now a crowded and noisy capital center. "20 years ago, Bangkok's population was less than 2 million. 10 years later, it had doubled. And it was growing at the rate of 100,000 a year. Today, 6 million people jostle for space, and the city is crumbling under the weight of its population. The Bicentennial must be a welcome diversion from the city of ours. The people of Bangkok prepare their city for the celebrations. Bangkok is given pride of place, even in the official emblem, depicting 2 heavenly bodies, inhabitants of the City of Angels. The Bicentennial celebrations have been designed to stress Thailand's national image. The official organizers want the emphasis placed on the country's cultural heritage, not only in Bangkok, but throughout the nation's 71 provinces. For the authorities, 1982, hopefully, will be a demonstration of Thailand's national character. But for some critics, the celebrations are meant to draw people's attention away from the country's problems. One of the centers of attention during the festivities is the Temple of the Emerald Buddha. Thailand's Fine Arts Department has mobilized 2,000 painters, carpenters, and masons to restore the art of the royal complex. Even good behavior prisoners were employed for the preparations and offered 1 day's remission on their sentences for a day's work. While the carpets were being rolled out, in the city, trees were planted, the canals cleaned, and roads resurfaced. Buddhism, the religion of the Orient, will play an integral part in the celebration. King Phumipon is a Buddhist sovereign. In Thailand, king and religion are the two pillars of the country's existence. The king is the guardian of a tradition of respect and obedience. King Phumipon and Queen Sirikit act both as symbols of national unity and Thailand's ambassadors across the world. And during their reign, they have met many world statesmen. The king, a constitutional monarch, has always visited political leaders in his capacity as head of state. In the field of foreign affairs, the king's role has always been to strengthen the bonds between his country and friendly nations. King Phumipon has outlived many of his royal contemporaries, and today is one of the world's longest surviving monarchs. The succession to the throne is assured. The king and queen have 4 grown children, 1 son and 3 daughters. The latest to marry was Princess Chulaborn, and her wedding to an Air Force officer earlier in 1982 provided an opening to the Bicentennial celebrations. Princess Chulaborn's wedding did not provide the occasion for a national holiday, though. Her wedding took place at a time selected as auspicious by court astrologers and was transmitted on television to the Thai people. Most Thais look upon the royal family with affection. They are a symbol of unity as a family and sovereigns. Buddhism is Thailand's state religion and considered an important and peaceful unifying thread. The festivities of 1982 celebrate Thailand's nationhood, but also demonstrate the powerful influence of Buddhism in modern Thailand. For the Thais, 1982 is a time to reflect, not only on their past, but also on their future. Apart from the Bicentennial, 1982 also marks an anniversary remembered by the royal family and the army. Just 50 years ago, a military coup brought an end to the absolute monarchy in Thailand, greatly reducing the king's powers. And ever since, the military has dominated political life here. A large majority of Thai government leaders in recent years have been generals or field marshals. Thais have come to accept the marshal. But a year of serious disorder inside Thailand's borders was 1976. In October, 5,000 students occupied Thammasat University to protest against police brutality and government policies. Then shooting broke out, and the students found themselves under attack from several sides, from armed police, troops, and right-wing militants. Although it was alleged that many of the students were supplied with arms, it proved to be a one-sided battle. Soon, at least 40 and possibly as many as 100 lay dead, and hundreds more injured. The repression of the students was almost a rehearsal for what followed that same evening, the launching of another military coup, installing a junta led this time by an admiral. The coup leaders announced the annulment of the democratic constitution, which had lasted just 3 years, and they also carried out arrests of left-wingers of all kinds, including socialist and Democrat politicians. The military boot was back. Years of limited and military-dominated democracy followed. But in 1981, even a government led by the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, General Prem, could not feel entirely secure. His deputy, General Sant, and a group of young officers seized the national radio station on April the 1st and announced a coup. According to political observers, the coup leaders' program was nationalist and vaguely socialist. But before they had had time to establish themselves, General Prem managed to win the backing of the main armed forces leaders, and just as importantly, the support of the king. The coup attempt was put down with minimal casualties, and most of the rebels were granted an amnesty. Such is the closeness of the military fraternity in Thailand. Military-dominated or not, Thailand has proved a haven in the last few years for hundreds of thousands of Southeast Asian refugees. The sad list includes victims of neighboring Kampuchea's bloody civil war and of the fighting still going on between opponents of the Vietnamese-backed government. There have been Vietnamese boat people too, and the luckless peasants who have simply been caught up in fighting they hardly understand. The refugee problem in the Kampuchea border area has been a major international issue since 1979, following the Vietnamese intervention that drove out Pol Pot. The main problem has been the logistics of bringing aid to the hundreds of thousands of refugees. But in recent months, there have been serious outbreaks of fighting. Thailand says its forces in March engaged several units of Vietnamese regular troops along the border, and Vietnamese artillery has caused damage and casualties in several camps and villages. The Vietnamese are apparently after the remnants of Pol Pot's Khmer Rouge forces in western Kampuchea, but too often the victims are the innocent and the helpless. War may be smoldering again on the Kampuchean border, but here in the hills of northern Thailand towards the border with Laos, there is a different kind of war, and one which has been going on for many years. The troops are fighting an elusive enemy, Thailand's own communist guerrillas, who have been engaged in armed insurgency since the mid-1960s. The next decade brought left-wing revolution in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. But to adopt the phrase beloved at the time by military analysts, Thailand proved to be the domino that did not fall. And since then, divisions between Vietnam, China, and the Soviet Union have confused Thailand's revolutionaries and left them isolated. In contrast, the confidence of the government troops is growing. The guerrillas have their main bases in the north and northeast, and also in the south, where they have links with Malaysia's communists. Their total numbers in Thailand are estimated at no more than 15,000, and their opponents are much better equipped. Thailand has long been aligned with the Western camp and was a member of the now defunct Southeast Asia Treaty Organization. Bases in Thailand were used by American B-52 bombers in raids against targets in North and South Vietnam, and U.S. forces stationed in Thailand reached a peak of 48,000 men in 1969. The Americans have since withdrawn, but they continue to supply the Thais with large quantities of military hardware. This is Khao Ko, 400 kilometers north of Bangkok, a traditional guerrilla stronghold. A sustained anti-guerrilla campaign here resulted in the capture of several major arms caches. The government troops also captured several guerrillas. A few years ago, prisoners would almost certainly be killed after interrogation. Often they were simply pushed out of a helicopter. But the government has found that brutality by its troops can give the rebels a good propaganda weapon among the peasantry. Today, a term of imprisonment and a re-education program is the usual fate of a captured guerrilla. And increasing numbers, claims the government, are simply defecting from their cause and surrendering. Another part of government policy involves the permanent stationing of troops in outlying towns and villages. Once a center is secure, the government is prepared to spend money to help the people live a better life. Examples of this have been the provision of new varieties of rice and the import of silkworms to stimulate local industry. As long as the military is in power, though, and full democracy is denied, political radicals will turn to guerrilla war. For example, students who were involved in the bloody clashes of 1967. In the meantime, the government is pressing ahead with its rural aid programs, part of its battle for the hearts and minds of the people, another echo of Vietnam. But officials in Bangkok say it's a policy that is working. A busy street in Bangkok. Is this child labor or private enterprise? The government is now starting its 5th successive 5-year plan, but the poor economic climate has obliged it to lower its sights from the goal of creating high economic growth. Economic stability is now the more modest target. Bangkok by night, a city now decorated more than usual for the Bicentennial celebrations. The royal year is expected to give a big boost to the tourist industry, already the second biggest earner of foreign currency. An anticipated 2 million visitors would bring in around $1 billion. The illuminated temples and palaces offer a unique sight, but Bangkok is famous for more worldly attractions too. This is the notorious Patpon Road, where nightclubs and massage parlors cluster together, most of them just a front for prostitution. Bangkok has become known as the sex capital of the Orient. It was during the Vietnam War that the city's nightlife boomed. Thousands of young American GIs would come here to live to the full every minute of their precious R&R, rest and recreation, between their terms of duty. Bangkok has not looked back since. Some Thais are ashamed of this business, but most say, why not? A bicentennial vasectomy, good to last 200 years. That's the humorous approach to another of Thailand's sex-related problems. Mr. Michai has been conducting a vigorous contraception drive almost single-handedly for over 10 years now. And his policy of taking the issue directly to the people has met with remarkable success. He has a great talent for publicity and showmanship, and he even organizes lotteries with cash prizes among all the men who volunteer for a vasectomy operation. 1 in 10 of the volunteers wins a scholarship worth $100 for one of his children. Michai first became interested in family planning back in 1968 when he worked among Khmer refugees. The issue became official government policy in 1971, but Michai found there was still widespread resistance to the idea among the masses. But with the help of 17,000 volunteers and donations from bodies including the Ford and Rockefeller Foundations, he has made birth control respectable. The Michai campaign has played a big part in bringing down the birth rate in Thailand from 3.5% in 1968 to 1.8% in 1981. Only 10% of couples practiced birth control a decade ago. Today, the figure is 60%. The traveling clinic has been hugely successful in persuading men to come forward for vasectomies. The Michai group say they have performed 40,000 of the operations in the 2.5 years they have been on the road. Michai says that the government sterilization program, carried out in hospitals, treats a ratio of 5 women to 1 man. His own program concentrates on the men, using a simpler, cheaper, and less dangerous operation. His ratio is 12 men to 1 woman.
All right.
The operation lasts just 7 minutes, and it's free.
Has become synonymous
Mr.
with
Michai
condoms.
talked to us
How
about
did you
his long
achieve this?
campaign.
I started giving out condoms to everyone I could find to try to desensitize the issue of family planning and contraceptives, and the press didn't like it 10 years ago, so they named the condom Michai after my name, and since then it's stuck.
But the press isn't against you anymore.
The press is now very, very friendly and most helpful. The ones that were strongest in opposition are the greatest in assistance today.
And what have been your greatest successes?
The fact that a condom is a very common everyday product. It's used as balloons, as hair bands, and of course as contraceptives, and people have it in proper perspective. Now people talk about family planning and accept family planning in a very simple, everyday fact of life.
And you yourself, have you had a vasectomy or do you use Michais?
I'm looking forward immensely to my own vasectomy, which I think will be done on television and televised nationwide. I have 1 child at the moment. Maybe I'll have it before I have a 2nd child.
Thank you very much.
And so Michai's name has now become synonymous in the vernacular with the condom. And is he embarrassed? Not at all. He even organizes Michai blowing contests, a prize for the biggest balloon. Mr. Michai is more than doing his bit to keep down Thailand's population, which is now approaching 50 million. But even his efforts cannot keep the city of Bangkok from approaching breaking point. Businesses and job seekers continue to crowd into the capital at the rate of a staggering 500,000 in 1981 alone. That brings the total to 6 million inhabitants, which has created chronic housing and traffic problems. One idea of the planners has been to fill in the city's canals to make more roads, but this proved to be disastrous. The canal system provided natural drainage, essential during the long monsoon season. and the city now suffers serious flooding nearly every year. Now everyone misses the old days when the canals provided slow but comfortable connections with all parts of the city. Tourist brochures call Bangkok the Venice of the East because of its canals. And like Venice, Bangkok is slowly sinking at the rate of 10 centimeters a year. It's a desperate situation, and there's not much that can be done about it. But still, the canals retain a certain charm, part of a Southeast Asian city that has not been ravaged by war. A charm that has been enhanced by the bicentennial celebrations of the royal family. But once the celebrations are finished, Thailand will find it has big political and economic problems to face all over again.